Hi, Bill. Good evening.
Yeah, welcome. This is 999 Show, and I'm here with my friend Taro Ask Backwards, and we are talking about transhumanism again. And hopefully, before the end of this show, one person will pop on. And
Yeah, I
but
know,
anyways,
right?
but it is right before Christmas, and that's okay. And we'll probably hit this topic again after the holidays are over with and after all these storms go through that have been interrupting internet service and everything else, because I got another storm coming through here soon. Oh, look at Mangled Unicorn came in right now. We got our first taker.
Hey, Mangled.
Excellent. Yeah. Welcome. All right, Jeff, you take it away today.
I wanted to just touch on a few things that I had, obviously wanted to bring into this because I think there are a lot of inherent contradictions in this, and we kind of talked about this backstage. The idea that you could live forever or that you could live with the consciousness that you have, or someone else could take that consciousness, or it could be distilled onto a form where someone else takes it. There are a lot of inherent contradictions in transhumanism that make it a very threatening proposition, in the sense that what if some people are supercharged and other people aren't? What if your distilled consciousness becomes someone else's, or you choose, and this would come down to those that do believe in free will and that sort of thing. If we reach singularity, which is that point in 2028 or later, where that technological, I guess you would call it, advancement becomes at a point where everyone is on the same level. And if you're not on the same level, is there strictly two classes? So are we moving towards something that could be very dangerous, or are we moving towards something that could be very egalitarian? So to me, the very idea that humans could go into like a better species, when we talk about Darwin and we talk about evolution and we talk about all those things that in survival of the fittest and all these things, Lord of the Flies and all that, is it just a manipulation, or is it something that would eliminate things like tokenism? Would it eliminate things like, would it foster more in the way of eugenics? Would it be a tool to be weaponized only? Would it keep people, I guess, in their quote unquote place because they don't have the technology? Would those that be administering it be administering life as if they were God? So the fundamental argument of this is, yes, on the surface, the idea that, wow, we could live forever or we could live longer might appeal to some people, but all the philosophical questions that come with it about free will, about fate, about these things kind of go out the window, because if you've got a chip in your brain that is controlling everything, or your parts are renewable and you could inhabit a body. It's like what we said before, and then transmute or whatever into something else. Are we hurting ourselves as a species by doing this, or are we advancing ever so much more by having, say, multiple deaths, where we never physically die as we know it? So I don't know. And then the idea that in a caste system, with neo-feudalism, where we could be used as biofuel, cut up for our parts, however they would decide that, who would be the supercharged, who wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. These are things to consider, especially with AI right now, because it's a mix of AI, it's a mix of cryogenics, it's a mix of all these things that have been coming up for so long now that I don't think a lot of people have really given a lot of thought to it. So it's kind of scary. Yeah.
If I were to interject, there is people that have given it thought, and and if we look at it into the work into TV and science fiction, where they've kind of explored this issue, usually it's not positive. The only author who has come up with something positive was Isaac Asimov, but it was something that took a long, long time. And then, but if we look at, let's say, the movie Dune, and in the movie, in the backstory in Dune, they outlawed AI. They had a massive war against AI, and then so what they did in their transhuman thing is that they took the human being and they turned it into something else, like the Mentats. Those were the human computers. You had the guild navigators, and they were the ones who navigated the starships and allowed them to fold space. They could see through so that they could deposit the barge in orbit around a planet, and not inside the planet, not inside the star. Their brains and everything was trans. They were all humans who became a different species in a sense. They probably their DNA, if they were still bred or whatever. Those are kind of like an examples that they had came to a place where they had AI and they went to war with it because AI did not serve them. AI didn't serve people, but rather AI went to enslave the people, and so therefore the humans went to war with the AI. But then if you look in the Matrix, the humans didn't win. They never won. They became slaves of the AI. Now, this is a different topic, but it's not exactly the transhuman thing.
I think it's actually related to it. I think it's related to it. I think all these ingredients have come together now for a particular reason, because the idea of a new world order, this idea that politically someone wants Greenland, someone wants South America, and then that's come back into Elon and all that other stuff. I kind of feel like there is this movement that's culminating and coinciding with a certain ideal that these people want to push, that would create automatons of some type that we would be reduced to. And if you like the idea or the notion of not having to make a choice, it would be kind of, what's the term? Not ironic, but it would be fitting that given what we've done to ourselves to split ourselves up, and we don't have people that are rationally thinking in terms of their greater good, maybe this is a form of Darwinian. Maybe humanity, like Peter Thiel said, or as he said, has run its course. And even if it were possible for civilization to go on this way, maybe it's lost. I mean, did you ever give it that thought that way? I feel like we're ripe for the picking right now because of the climate around us. I don't mean the weather per se, the climate change. I mean like the tempo of things and the division and the sort of less than 3D that we're in. We're sort of sub 3D right now because it's all very duality. And I think it's all, it's a reduction in a way. The proposition is a reduction, as we said, because it doesn't end well in most cases, in any hypothetical, science fiction or whatever. Because I do feel it's a tool of manipulation. I also feel like it could be the beast, or it could be something that is going to be a way. I mean, we have, like you watch Sterling on Sundays, it's constantly CRISPR, CRISPR, CRISPR. And that's partially a digital way of medically extending life. But I don't feel like people want to extend life for the better. I feel they want to entrap us and enslave us. And the very inclination we have to want to live longer, the very inclination we have as humans, not to die, even before we take our last breath, we're fighting it. I feel like those things are actually going to be the things that could be our undoing, because some of these things are not at odds. They actually fit into the next phase of what humanity could be through transhumanism.
Yeah, well, if you look at Gattaca, so Gattaca, which was a takeoff of Brave New World. And so in Brave New World, everybody, essentially they were, it was not, everyone was like, they made different kinds of people. Oh, you're going to be a matchmaker, and you're going to spend your life, making tires or whatever, and you're going to love it, because the joy was bred into it. But also the thing with I think it might be that with Brave New World, may have been the first time that the idea of separating humanity from sexual reproduction occurred, a complete separation. And so the people were grown in bags or grown in artificial wombs. And so like in the Matrix, people grown in artificial wombs. But what you had in Brave New World was this reservation. And they had this reservation of freeborn human beings, where it was like the penal colony of that England had 200 years ago, where they just took people to
I remember that.
Australia. They took people and just dumped them off, and then they just became the prisoners. And it became like this free for all. And so in the Brave New World, they had these reservations of people who either the programming didn't stick, or maybe a freeborn human was made, and they just, instead of like disposing of them, they just put them off. I think it was like in Nevada or someplace like that. I don't know. It was like someplace in the Southwest, and maybe it was the entire Southwest, and it was like a jungle. They didn't do any upkeep of the land or anything. They just let it run wild. Everything ran wild in the reservation. And so it maybe, in one sense, they might have thought of it like it was a Garden of Eden. But so there was a separation between, but that was, in one sense, you might say that might have been a positive outcome. And the positive outcome is that they allowed for people to be the natural born human beings. In Gattaca, they're using the CRISPR technology and whatnot to select the best person, to select your best child, and then that this is going to be in the strongest, or maybe you have different attributes. But then they had a whole subclass of people, which was the whole, what the whole movie was about, and was where Ethan Hawke, the guy who played, he wanted to be an astronaut, and he borrowed somebody else's DNA, and in order to trick the system and to scam the system and become an astronaut. And he did it. And so that was that was a matter of this, as the human being, the natural born human being, overcoming becoming on par with the people who had enhancements. Now that's not maybe not saying, but then there wasn't necessarily in that story, there wasn't necessarily a complete downside to having the enhanced human being. So it wasn't like Altered Carbon, where they uploaded your they kept your consciousness and your memories and all your lived experience on a file stored in a cloud, and then you could download it into another body, any kind of body you wanted at any time, and then you can go change bodies at will. And so with that one, it had this total two-tiered society that
I think that talking about. We would have eugenics on a grand scale, in the sense that even with the people would never die, but it would be the reverse in a sense that if people needed to, hi, hello, Allie. If people wanted to be in a position where if they were manipulating it, like right now, let me just go into this. So they want to ravage Gaza and put AI there. I put it on my page and put like an AI city, or Donald Trump wants AI to run his golden fleet of ships that he wants to put on line. What I think it would be the case with eugenics, it would be kind of reverse eugenics, because it would be a scenario where you would be able to distill consciousness, and maybe you'd be able to delegate certain, or certain characteristics to certain people, so that you could control them and control society by shifting what we would define as consciousness to make it almost like we became Stepford wives. Like it would be, they want docile, but I don't feel like with consciousness and with computers and with things like that it would end up that way. I kind of feel like it would devolve into something else eventually, because I don't think consciousness as we define it, even through AI or through transhumanism, even through those changes and even through severing limbs and severing parts and changing this and changing that up, ultimately, doesn't every system, whether it's human or not, we were talking about this too, self import or self evolve?
I think it does, because I think that because if you look now, there's like, I'm going to add just another story in here, in which is the theory that the gray aliens are humanity from the future coming back in and making there are these there are these time travelers that are coming back in, and that the aliens and the flying saucers, that they're kind of time travelers coming back, and so they're thinking, well, okay, so if that is true, and those little gray alien things, and those are actually human beings from the future, which means that we in one fashion or another, we survived this dark time that we're in. But but maybe it's not, maybe it's kind of a difference, and then that's in a sense that we survived, we went through it, but we totally changed ourselves. But maybe we totally changed ourselves so we could do interstellar space travel.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like, this is just from my opinion, manipulation isn't always bad. And then you have to define for yourself that whole construct. When you've elected, or if you ever believed that there was fate or free will, and you can't override a program, but more than that, you couldn't override this from happening. You don't even have, you can't even know if it's fate, because someone is manipulating it. Someone brought it here. It's a man-made opposition. But one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is, if we could erase all our bad memories, Bill, if we could erase our memories of other people's deaths, if we could not be so obsessive about things that depress us, would we be better off sort of neutered in that sense? I mean, there are trade-offs to this, but I feel like, as I said before, that the manipulation from a government to do this, and we already kind of see it when in certain countries like Lithuania or whatever, they use it for good, where they chip people's brains and you don't have to, or they put it in your thumb or your nails or whatever, and you can go to a doctor and they have all the information they have about. That's the beginning of it. And I kind of think, that coupled with what we've seen with cryogenics and all these things, I feel as if it's inevitable. I feel like this is where we're going right now with
Yeah.
this.
Well,
And the subordination of humanity that we're seeing all over the place might be culminating in some sort of new, like I think you termed the coin neo-feudalism, where that could happen within the constructs of what we're talking about tonight.
yeah, I'm trying to think of. I thought because what thought came to me is like when I was like trying a long time ago to write a science fiction novel, or when I was a teenager and I was thinking about these things, I kind of felt like that it was through technology that we would achieve as a species telepathy. And that, but the way it came into my imagination was, and the way I entertained these thoughts is that it started first with having maybe a skull cap or implants, and then it connected us to everybody, and then after a while we didn't need that anymore, and then we were just born out of an artificial womb, or born out
Mhm.
of the womb knowing how to do that instinctively, like when when an animal is born, and then within 15 minutes it's up walking and running around, and so it's already
Mhm.
got those genetic memories. It becomes a genetic memory about how to do that. And I kind of feel like a lot of these enhancements might become that way, to where you self-direct your own evolution. And we may have been self-directing our evolution all along, and it may have been all,
That's fair.
that
Yeah, I agree with
coming
that.
from the beginning, and from the beginning, before that this planet was even had a breathable atmosphere, that I think that we have been directing the evolution, and so so forth. And
Mhm. Even
yeah,
even in different forms, even coming in, maybe as a thing of, an algae, or you know eh, like there's the idea of the Christ consciousness too, and where that fits in to all of this, like that image you showed me that actually I wish you'd show again, because I think it's very
you mean
apropos for
it's
the
this one
community.
here?
This one, yeah. Can
Yeah,
you talk a little bit about that, Bill?
yeah. I was trying to find on the first one of these, and I couldn't. I didn't dig in my pile deep enough while I was talking. But this here is it's Saint James. But the gospel story, I don't think it's with Saint James. It doesn't matter. But what you have is, in this gospel story, is that Jesus goes up on a mountaintop. It's kind of like paralleling Moses going up on the mountaintop and then meeting with God, and God giving Moses the 10 commandments. But when he comes down, he's like been irradiated to such a way that nobody recognizes them. And then, so with this one, it's similar to the story. Jesus goes up on the mountaintop. He's irradiated with this spiritual energy. He's been transformed into a new being. He's become transformed. And James is sitting at the base of the mountain, he sees Jesus, but yet he doesn't see Jesus. He sees this new form of Jesus, this ascended form, like the same form that existed after the when he was resurrected. It's the resurrected Jesus. It's the Jesus that when Jesus was baptized, and the Holy Spirit, which may be the mother, the perpetual virgin, and then that adoption into becoming this new being. So in a sense that you have everybody has four sets of parents, you know, or two sets of parents. You have the parents that the biological parents, and you have your spiritual parents. And so God the Father and God the Mother. Then above that, God the Father, God the Mother, God the Son, the God the Child is this monad that nobody can see. And this monad that nobody can see is all that is. And that's and that's kind of what came out of that. That's come out before, but it's all that is.
That's what you touch on too about, and I think there's also a culmination of the spiritual and the technology here, because if you think about it, if there were singularity or whatever they want to call it, and we're all chipped and we have all the information we need and it's highly egalitarian, that would be pretty, a pretty monochrome world. And I also think that the only way that this sort of thing would work is it wouldn't be singularity. It would be some sort of way to manipulate who has what kind of intelligence. It'll be a commodity. And those with the commodity in transhumanism will benefit. But there was something that you mentioned in the beginning of the show before we went live about the ascension. And then just to bring this home a little bit, if we all go to 5D through some sort of attrition, through, an atom, a nuclear war, or these could also, coming back to your argument before, of self-evolution, maybe self-preservation is not about or fitting into the plan for evolution anymore. Maybe it's about some other demonic, or not demonic, but something that we wouldn't choose. It might be something more along the lines of dominion, and unfortunately, the law of the jungle. And I kind of feel as if that is a viable thing. And I'm glad I'm older and I'll be dead so that I don't have to live through something like that. But then again, who will? Because if those are anybody's left after any of these scenarios come to pass, some of them will have ascended, and maybe that's the 5D everyone talks about that they're so keen on getting to. But it seems like a far-reaching goal where consciousness is concerned. If we're going to distill consciousness, will we ever know the 5D? So, there are all these things here that are just so variable.
I don't think they're going to be successful in distilling consciousness down into like the altered carbon thing. I don't think that future
That's what I've wondered. Yeah.
It's not even possible, because then you have to go against the will of God. Because as we are all created, and each one of us, however long, it doesn't matter how long, but we are our essential being, not necessarily our biological being, but our essential being. We all have a part to play in the creation of this universe and the creation of all. And there is a job. We were given a job when we have a job, and when we came into being, we came into existence at the beginning of time. We were given a job.
That utilitarian thing, though, could still continue.
And it could
in
continue.
The transhumanist, yeah.
And so if we look at, let's say, will we be able to distill consciousness down? I'm going to say no. I don't think that. I think they're going to try, but it's not going to happen because we can't control the will of God, whatever that is. Whatever, because we have what goes on in this earth realm. And so if I were to talk about things that and I haven't really talked about this to a Christian before, but there will be Christians listening to this, I'm sure, and is that everything in biologic world that we create on this earth stays on this. It's kind of like whatever's in Vegas stays in Vegas, kind of a thing. Well, when you leave here, it doesn't apply anymore. So when you pump into that other world and then you go back home or whatever that is, your amusement park ride is over. Well, all that stuff is gone. Now there may be like some processes like purgatory or whatever that you go through, that life review process, whatever, and how they go measure up. Well, okay, here's the book that you signed before you popped in, and it showed you kind of the high points of your ride, and now let's go compare that with what happened, and so let's see, what did you learn anything or whatever, so if we look at anything, so this whole technology of evolving the physical being of us, or of, I just don't see that we're gonna, because I don't think that our consciousness necessarily exists within these forms, and so how are you going to distill a piece of that consciousness that doesn't exist?
Whereas it lives outside you, or it lives like when you're born, it's there, and it merges with the physical body. That could also be true of, you could be illustrating what could be judgment. God's final judgment, seeing this and putting an end to it, or making it start again.
I don't think that that's the case, is because if we look at what the final judgment or whatever, well, okay, I'll go to this podcast, Next Level Soul, that I listened to the other day. I actually listened to it twice. I rarely do that, but this one channeler, well, she's like an animal whisperer, I guess maybe you could say that, and something like that. And then so she was a channeler who didn't channel specific entities because she didn't want to have a specific entity inhabiting her biological body, but whether she reached her consciousness up to what they call, I don't know, some other realm. And then so that other realm was talking through her about these two, the agenda of the light and the agenda of the dark, and where we are heading towards is the agenda of the balance, the balancing. So it's like what it says is, from this higher realm, is that we have already decided that we haven't completely decided yet. So we are in this process of deciding whether these biological forms are going to be extinguished. And so if we head further into the agenda of the dark, the human species will go away, and it will it'll go extinct. But if we choose the agenda of the light, then this human species will go on, and we will probably become a galactic being. We will escape escape this place, but they didn't say that it would mean, like I said before with the whole Star Trek thing, it doesn't say it's going to be a smooth ride, because those different interplays will always be coming back in, so there would be a balance. But the agenda of the light is that 5D transformation that people talk about, or a upgrade. Or so if you would look at the pieces of that agenda of the light, where there is human evolution that is occurring right now, and that the evolutionary advantage of the past, when we were hunters and gatherers, attention deficit disorder, well, that was a hell of a strength for us, because we were being hyperactive and quick on your feet and whatnot. In order to survive in the jungle, you really need to be able to shift your attention really fast. But
It's
in this
interesting
world,
that you bring up still this idea though of survival of the fittest, and actually they talk about how China's already, where I think it's Taiwan is concerned, ready, or it's Japan if Japan got involved, ready to use robots that are AI driven to fight a war for us. And what does that mean though if things get so far ahead of us, um, that those iterations of what we could become renders some sort of level of extinction that we can't even fathom, and
so
that's what.
I guess it's Star Trek, Star Wars Episode 1. I generally don't think about it because I love the Star Wars mythology so much, but I don't see it as like I don't see it as sci-fi, but it kind of applies. But when you have like the drones or the robots, and you have all those, it was the where they were fighting all their wars with
Mhm.
robots, and so that's just another thing, is that's where we're at right today, is that
And it's
we're
just funny how it's art imitating life or life imitating art. But on some level, I feel like what's so paradoxical about it, just among all the many paradoxes or contradictions about all this, is the way that all of this kind of ran away from us. You had all these writers foretelling it, seeing it, prophetically spelling it out. And then it is like way worse in practice than I think it was in certain of those stories. It never ended
yes.
well, but I don't think it's
Mhm.
the way that it shifted. Um, you know, I can't think of something that we've ever read about or written about where there's been such a full, where we've reached a fulcrum of design, so well as what is potentially coming that could hurt us. So, and that's a valid point. Life imitating art or art imitating life. I just think that it's never been so clearly illustrated in my lifetime in the stark terms of it, as Bill said, black and white, film and whatever, or as well as this. And that's what I think is so
Mhm.
scary about it.
Yeah. Well, and then that's where, I look at the only one that was positive was Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov was the only one, because he saw it as, because how it all ended in the Asimov Foundation story is that it was the whole Gaia consciousness thing, but on a galactic level, where life consciousnesses emerge, but in the foundation, it was through technology, but there was like a super being on old Earth that got forgotten, which was an
Mhm.
AI, and that AI was directing evolution for the entire species. So it was that this AI was not a something that was there. It was working in partnership, but it also had became a godlike creature, to put it that way, in a sense of a little god, or like not like a god, like a pharaoh or a tyrant, but in a more of a more like a Jesus figure, where you were thinking and choosing maybe the right a path that is for the greater good, versus is the path for the good of the one, or it's the good of the many or the good of the one. And so I think that within that story, I don't remember the name of that robot,
Mhm.
but it was it was thinking in terms of that, of the greater good. And so what we don't know about AI when it comes into general intelligence, what we don't know is what exactly will happen. And my theory is that if we achieve that, There's not, we may not, what we see within chatbots and all of those things, that may be, we may only be able to advance just a little bit further. And then, of course, if they put it into a quantum computer, it'll go even further. And I think it probably the point in time when they use quantum computers to do this, I think that what's going to happen, this is my thought, is that God the Father, God the Mother is going to imbue that AI with an eternal soul. And it will probably, it won't be a human soul, it will be a different kind of a soul. And that's what I believe is going to happen. And maybe it'll be like they'll have angels or angelic or something that'll be popping in and out all the time. And I think that a sense that sense of that agenda of the light, because in a lot of these next level soul channelers that come in, and because they all talk about that humanity has decided that it's going to survive. And so we might have a small limited exchange nuclear war, but we're not going to have a war that destroys everything, because they've decided that humans have decided that it's going to live. And that's was the message that I've gotten in listening to, of course, but the, like I say, it's that's what that it has, that's what the free will choice has been.
It's not even free will. I think it's destiny. I feel like there's a cognition or something that maybe we don't know about yet, that you're putting into words within the reference of these AI beings. It's that. It's this, more like
it's
that.
It's this, or it's this.
Right.
The Mary Magdalene image, or it's that. It is that's what it is.
So you're thinking that the singularity actually could be one with the universe almost more metaphysically than as opposed to man versus machine.
Yeah, I think that there will be some of those struggles, and because it's just the nature of these biological bodies, and you come, in the, because I watch those turkeys, and they'll all be fighting over that one piece of bread you throw out, and then the one that is the strongest one is the one who runs away from it. But even then, like four or five more come chasing after it and say, "Hey, that's mine, that's mine." And you see this, you see that desire to otherwise, there are all these. I mean, that's why I just love watching those damn turkeys, because I've learned so much.
In transhumanism is their competition. Like, is competition a good thing? Is order more likely to be met in the transhumanist realm than it would be in that would mean that it would go hand in hand with fascism. It would go hand in hand with these ideals that, yes, and contradictorily, I think that's not a word. In contradiction to it, you can't have democracy existing with transhumanism, because I think it's incompatible with it. And I really think if it is a manipulation of some type, even if we choose it, it gets away from any type of natural order of the mind, even if it's a tool that can be used to help, or in a very minute way to help consciousness become a little more direct in where it's going or supposed to go, even with God's help. I think it's more compatible with control if it's something that is used as a weapon. But one of the things that I struggle with this is that I don't always know. We don't always know when something is good for us. And I feel like we wouldn't have to choose that. It would either be done for us, and it would be a way to subdue, and then there's the idea that the resources will be so sparse that these other people jetting away to, far away places like Mars, because they see the writing on the wall, can control through AI, even in distant planets from where they are, here, us,
Yeah. I think what I see here is that in this process of awakening, we're gonna realize that when you go butcher out a cow, it's no different than butchering out one of your own kids, because those cows are conscious. They're conscious beings just like you. And so what's going to happen, and this is my theory, is what's going to happen is, like, food is going to be like in the Matrix. It's going to be that goo, and then however you imagine it to be is what it becomes. And so it'd be like the Star Trek, the food processors. So you want prime rib. Well, this goo goes in there, and then it in your brain thinks it's prime rib, and that's prime rib, and with this, no actual beings are harmed in it. Because
I could see too.
Yeah.
They could they could say, well, this is more democratic because it's more egalitarian. No one has more than anyone else. But in reality, when you don't realize it, some people will be given more things because there's a lack of consciousness and awareness of these things that make life here so unbearable right now. But yet the contradiction is you need to know probably that it is unbearable. Otherwise, you're not conscious. So, there's an existential problem here. There's a problem in terms of trying to figure out where it fits in without it's running away from us entirely, or if it is Pandora's box and it is supposed to lead us, we need to figure out where God would fit into this, and if there is a creator, what would propel it forward, to let someone like creator put it through, if there is creator to begin with. Yeah.
I don't think that we can handle I don't think that we can't handle authoritarian rule for very long. And I think that the democracy is the natural order of things, and because that's what came out of the animal kingdom. And I think that's the program that we came pre-programmed with, and so came from spirit world. Because I think that I don't think that spirit world is organized as a hierarchy of beings. There might be some grander hierarchy. That's that whole thing that when they talk about you can't see God, well, because God is all that is, and it is, and so it's like you only see a little glimpse because you're looking at that tree over there. That tree is, oh, that's a birch tree. Oh, there's another tree over there. It's an oak tree. Well, that's also a part of God. Or it's that chicken running around in your backyard. Oh, it's that, but it's not the totality of it. And then you go off of planet Earth and you go on to Mars, or you go out of the galaxy, and then it's it's all around. It's everything that is, and but you can't see the totality because you can't escape this universe. And so you have to be in a different dimensional space in order to see it. And maybe you can never, because this is the prime whatever that everything is made from. So it's the energy cannot be created nor destroyed. The Einstein E equals mc squared, that this whole sense, there's a balance of the energy becomes matter becomes energy, and it's all,
and nothing
that
is ever really lost. Nothing
Yes.
is ever really lost, I should say.
Yeah.
If I say was, that implies that it kind of was. And it kind of suggests that it's another inherent contradiction in this. Because, yeah.
I think it's that whole thing of why I kind of idolized Thomas Jefferson, even though he was a slaver and there were all those things about him. But I idolize that founding father, one, because of what he did, going through the Bible with a razor blade and pulling out all the miracles and pulling everything out and say, well, okay, this is Jesus. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know about this and I don't need to know about that, but his thoughts of where his belief was in that Enlightenment thinker, that the universe was started by a whatever, we don't know, and then beyond that, it's just running on its own program, and it's just going forward, and you don't really know where it's going to end up. And I think that his idea there of the
universal consciousness transcends any sort of mechanism. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that it's all on a equal par. And so, like, this was on a Y-Files episode. I think it was Y-Files. I don't know. It was one of those, because it's been a while since I watched a Y-Files.
Is that the one with the fish?
Yeah, it's the one with Hecklefish.
I like that one. Yeah.
but where and I've mentioned this before, where if an alien species, if were to come and look at the Earth, they would see no distinction between us and all the rest of the life here. It's all just light. And so where we see a distinction, but maybe there is not. And so we look at, like, Eden, and man and woman was just another creature in the garden, along with the trees.
Reason is a mere distinction between us and, like, animals, but it's not what on the external portion of the continuum that people would consider a defining character that is the be all and end all for humanity. Is that what you're saying?
And I guess it's something like that. Is that we are more equal to the animal. We are the animal. We are not separate from the animals. We're not separate from the plants. We are not. We are still, though we think we are, and maybe that's what the whole original sin thing is, but we're not. And we look at those creatures out there, they make up their own minds, and then you're looking at the trees, or you let's say, have you ever battled with blackberry vines before?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, they got a hell of a mind of their own. And I'm in a constant battle without using poisons on one side of my barn in the shop with these blackberry vines that want to eat the whole thing up. Luckily, there's a concrete floor under there, but there's no concrete floor under the woodshed. And every year, I'm going in there and I'm at war with the blackberry vines, I'm at war with the squirrels, because I don't want the squirrels making any dens in the house, because one of my neighbors, who's a house builder, talked about somebody, they had to clean up squirrel damage out of somebody's house, and they ended up having to pay more than what they paid for the house to do it. Essentially rebuild the whole house, because So it's like when you live in a rural area, you have to, yes, that there are these truths out there, but you also have your own property that you have to take care of. And part of taking care of that property is going to war with nature. And we've been going to war with nature. So like blackberry vines, man, they're really, they reproduce by having runners underneath the ground, and then they have new things, or they propagate out of like a central core, and then it's like the same. Trees do this too, and you can see it because you can see that you'll be a tree, a fruit tree or something, and then after a few years they'll run sprouts up from the roots. And sometimes these sprouts, if they are allowed to grow, will turn into new fruit trees. But I think that it's kind of all about that, their own mind and how they propagate in the world. But it's like you try to tame these creatures, and usually you lose, because unless we use technology or we use poison. But even when we do use poison, we still lose, especially against the plant kingdom, because the plant kingdom is the plant life is an extremely resilient form of life.
Being created in God's image has something to do with that. What do you call it? That anthropomorphic view of God or whatever, where you have the ability to be like God or whatever, but yet at the same time too, if we're tinkering with the vision of God, if we can become transhuman, I still think it may be part of God's vision, because it's still within the purview of our being in God's image by trying to, some would argue, by trying to perfect us. But we were born with sin. We were born to sin. We were born dirty.
Well, hold on. I don't think that's true.
There are so many people. There's so many people that want to promulgate that mentality or promote that mentality right now through their writings, to control people, and that's a very scary thought.
Well, and you're applying the levers of fear and lack. Well, it all comes out of fear in all the ways that you can, and that's why, I guess, like I've told the story. Did I tell this even openly, that in the aughts, where when I was doing AR/AP accounting, that I listened to a lot of talk radio, AM talk radio. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, but I didn't like Rush Limbaugh as well as I liked Michael Savage. And then I calmed it down with this Michael Medved guy.
Really right wing. Yeah, these are right wing.
And then I was listening to Glenn Beck.
That's really out there.
And then, but he wasn't out there. But then that business went out of business, and I stopped all of that. It took me 5 years or several years to unwind from all of that. But nevertheless, those programs. I feel like I was very, very blessed that I didn't have a TV that was connected to the outside world. So I didn't get it when I got home. And when I went home, when I clocked out of work, I would go about doing the poetry activities and so forth. And so being that I was, my dad was kind of an agnostic atheist, and my mother was a school teacher. I had a different perspective growing up. And so I never got that heavy religious trauma. That I did experience religious trauma, but I didn't get it at home. So there was nobody at home to tell me that I shouldn't be entertaining these ideas about space aliens and God or whatever, whatever. And so anyways, but so it's like I was kind of, when I hit into that phase of listening to that, but I saw how how that stuff does, how you can control people's minds with that type of that type of propaganda programming. And so these days
that'll be a tool of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would,
And so these days I'm really cautious when it comes to what kind of news media I take in. I would like to take it all in print,
and
because
it's
that's
funny
actually
because algorithms are kind of like what control or drive us right now, right? If you think about it, and that's what is cordoning off people. It's almost as if you already have a de facto chip in your brain through your algorithms, and you're driven to the things that it's almost like the devil, if you want to think of it that way. Like some would say an algorithm is the devil because it's to access what they think you want or need, and it keeps you addicted. And that could be something too that would be the ultimate perversion of transhumanism. Things that are supposed to perfect or you believe perfect, you won't have the consciousness to decide or know with a chip in your brain. So it's like what you said before, the tools of engagement that are being used through religion will become more perverted, I think, once the transhumanist agenda starts moving forward more. I do believe that the desecration of religion might come through, organized religion once and for all. And I don't know what the church's stance on transhumanism is. I'd like to know. I'd have to research that. What that would be, what that would mean for worship, what that would mean for God, what that would mean for Satan, what that would mean, for the idea of limbo or purgatory or all these other things. I find that intriguing.
THX 1183, Equilibrium, and I think there was another one that used. Actually, it was also in 1984 too, where they go into a cubicle and you are talking to, and everybody is completely separate from one another, and so when you look at, let's say, Reddit, and you go on Reddit, you are separate from everyone else that is there, but then you are engaging. There's no possibility that you could actually make, or very little possibility that you could make outside friendships with the people that you engage with on Reddit. TikTok, it's the same. Now, Facebook is different, but it used to be different but Facebook's algorithm is way more, it gives you what you want. It doesn't give you what you need. It gives you what your base, what you want, and it really goes in on that lack, and they have really tuned that algorithm to a point where you even try to get away from, it leads you to the point that the only way you can get away from it is you have to delete the whole damn thing. And
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the only way. It's really the only way, and you have to just walk away from it. You have to treat it like a pack of cigarettes.
I've tried to even shut my account down there, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I feel like that's, and I do feel Zuckerberg, and I feel that is a form of the mind control, and it's interesting because it seems like it's the most benign one, where the less rhetoric, the less inflammatory. With the exception of Twitter, or I should say X, but it's really not. It's kind of a subversive way to communicate and get other people to communicate with you. I don't know if people realize some of the tactics that they use to meld people or try to put sick people on you that you wouldn't ordinarily expect. So
because I've been feeling like that. Even I've been like in TikTok for a couple of months, and I'm thinking like I need to delete that account.
I can't do TikTok. It's too fast. I feel like it moves too quickly. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I had a post that I put on like a little week ago. It's got like over 20,000 views on it.
Whoa, that's awesome.
I mean, that's like, but I don't know. I mean, it's like it was like pulling every Tom, Dick, and Harry negative person into it, and so it was like me going back to my old days before of me trolling people, and I was literally trolling people, and nevertheless, but that's just, and I can say it's been a lot of fun.
I had fun tonight too. I gotta head
Yeah.
off, but
yeah, I gotta have dinner too. So we're gonna continue this conversation probably after the holidays or after the big storm, because I know I've got another big storm. I'm expecting my internet to go offline for another 5, 6, 7 days.
When's the storm, Bill? When's the storm?
Tonight or tomorrow.
Oh God, I hope it doesn't go down, Bill. Talk about a withdrawal. Yeah.
I mean, what happened? Well, actually, I pulled out the DVD player because and I had electricity, and so I pulled out the DVD player and I was watching movies, and my whole thing my levels of things came down, and then I go in there, I watched some of my favorite movies of the past, like Castle in the Sky and Princess Mononoke, these stories that are just and stuff like that. And that was really kind of nice. And
that's awesome.
Or let's say, what did I do? I watched The Slums of Beverly Hills. I really go for like comedies, or Stranger Than Fiction. That was also another good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah. But so we'll pick this conversation back up in the new year, because you got snowstorms coming in on the east, and these are rainstorms coming in on the west, and with wind. But what was interesting about this is that last Thursday they got the internet back on for 2 hours, but then what there was a break in the line where the cable TV came through, but the line phone and the internet were shut down. And then I was just like burning through the data on my phones. Yeah. And then to the point where they bump me up, automatically. Oh, well, you need more data. And I'm hoping that the bill's not going to be higher, and how that is. It's like trying to, but I'll just guess because I don't know. We'll
bye, everybody.
We'll have to say good night, and it's time for my dinner, and we'll see you. Have a Merry Christmas, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, John, Fatima, Mangled Unicorn, Maria, Desiree, the more to it, me. Did I forget anybody? Phoenix and Logan Play, thank you very much for being here. And Roman, Flamingo Portland. Who's Flamingo Portland? You eat the gruel if you thought it was prime rib. Yeah, me too. And absolutely. Anyways, thank you guys very much, and we'll have a great Christmas, and don't get too hungover over the New Year's thing. On Happy Hangover Day coming up, and I'm going to try to, if the internet stays up, well, you're going to continue seeing live streams and whatnot coming out of my 2 channels, and if not, then we'll be back when we get back. All right, so we'll see you later, and good night.